Hello, Radioheads. You know this is El Man. I'm here with producer Lucky Steve. Welcome to the show.
Hello, hello, hello. How are you?
So I like to learn from mistakes. I'm a Virgo, according to the chart. They're all into being critical. So we're going to start off as a stereotypical Virgo as my sun sign. What are some of your biggest mistakes, or at least one mistake that maybe other people listening can learn from while filmmaking? A bad choice. You're like, let's not do that one again.
Well, I'm a Sagittarius, and we're very kind of like um, just go ahead and do the thing and give it a shot kind of people.
Hmm.
So that can involve a fair amount of mistakes. That process. We don't really plan things too much ahead of time. We just kind of go for it spontaneously, and luckily, I haven't had any major mishaps, and I should mention, I'm kind of new to producing cinema, at least.
Hmm.
I've
Not
worked
live shows though. Live shows,
live
you produced
shows
a
I
lot
was
of
doing
live
for
shows.
years. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
well over a few hundred actually.
Hmm.
I used to produce cabaret entertainment, comedy shows, burlesque shows, band nights, that kind of a thing. So I had a long history in New York City. Nightlife entertainment for over 10 years and in off Broadway theater for quite a number of years as well. And what I always really wanted to do was work in movies. And I got involved with Trauma Entertainment a few years ago when Lloyd Kaufman was doing his when he was directing Shakespeare's. I'm not supposed to curse, but then I can't say the
The
name of the movie.
Catch, Shakespeare, Storm.
Yes, 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 yes. You can. I mean, you can just Google it and see the Shakespeare's Poopy Storm. We'll just call it.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Is was I had heard from my good friend Doug Sackman that film was being done and it was maybe going to be Lloyd Kaufman's last directorial feature. And I had actually interned at Troma when I was a teenager and a student at the School of Visual Arts film school. So I did go to film school, but I didn't actually get involved in filmmaking until much later in life. And yeah, so I first started working with Lloyd 22 years ago. It was
Hmm.
2001, and I was a college student, and I was living in the city here, and that was my first foray into professional filmmaking. And like a lot of people who started out working with Lloyd, I learned a lot of things. I learned pretty much anything you could learn, and I went off in a lot of other directions in life, but yeah, a few years ago, I reconnected with Lloyd. He put me in he got me on the crew of his movie, and I was specifically in charge of some of the casting, is what I was doing for that film. And I'm also in the movie, by the way. I have a really cool scene where I mutate and I melt and I get fused together in an orgy with some other people. Can I say orgy? Is that okay
I'm
for
not
radio?
sure. We'll just move on. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see if they cut it out later. But
We'll
yeah,
see what
it's like
happens.
yeah, the scene was very. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Society. It's a great movie, but
Mm.
it's kind of reminiscent of that. A little, I would say, maybe a parody thereof. But yeah, I got fused together with people, and there were butts and boobs and other, you know, genitalia parts sticking out of everybody, and lots of slime, and that was fun. But mostly, I was doing casting for the.
Oh, your audio dropped off. There we go.
Um,
So your biggest
I would say,
mistake while filming or casting or editing, now that we know your whole life story and your birthplace and how your parents met. Sorry. I know for anyone listening, I know Steve and I have great love for him. So I'm just busting his chops here. But I did ask the question about 4 minutes ago. So what what's one of your
oh, really? Is
mistakes
that much
that
time
happened
passed? Well,
while
damn.
filming or casting or
I would say that
editing?
my biggest mistake, and I wouldn't call it a mistake because I got the job done under the we were under pressure to just get people to show up and be
Mhm.
extras in the film,
Right.
and a good chunk of that movie actually takes place in a strip club that the main character, played by Lloyd, owns, and he's a mad scientist who also owns a strip club, and it's a whole other. That's a well, go see the movie.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, I had done staffing for those sort of places as part of my job when I was doing nightlife entertainment. So I knew a lot of people in that industry, and I knew a lot of actors, and I knew a lot of comedians, and I knew all of these esoteric sort of people, circus folk, freak show people, punk rock kids, weirdos, people, all kinds of people that would show up and be in a weird movie for free. That's what they needed. Who can get the most
Hmm.
people to show up here and be for free and do weird, strange things, take off their clothes, mutate, whatever.
There are
And no,
some
we
weird
can't
things
pay.
in that movie, and it is really
A
creative
lot of
and
weird
really
things.
cool.
Yeah.
Highly recommend Shakespeare
Um,
Poop
it's
Storm.
great. Yeah. Yeah. And um,
So
weird
what
is
was a
fun.
mistake?
So
What was the problem
the
with
mistake
casting?
was, I would say that I maybe cast my net a little too widely. And
Oh.
so, just for the sake of expediency, rather than respond to all the many individual messages that I was receiving, because I was doing other jobs on set too and acting in the film,
Right.
I just put up a notice, just show up here, and we'll find some way to put you.
Okay.
And that's typically how it goes in a trauma film. So I wasn't really doing
Hmm.
anything out of the ordinary. But I
Okay.
remember there were these two people that showed up, and I had worked with them maybe once before, like a decade and a half earlier, where I booked them for some nightclub act, doing some freak show BS. And they were one guy was a fire performer, and his girlfriend was a stripper, and they showed up, and they weren't. We didn't really need any more people that day, but we were going to put them in the movie regardless. We're going to stick them in somewhere. But they started going around set bothering everybody,
How?
asking for like
What?
$80.
Eighty
Even though it
dollars
was clearly
each?
explained. Just $80. That's all
They
they
were
wanted, I guess.
panhandling for $80 from each
They
person?
were literally panhandling on set, and they were trying
Eighty
to figure out who was
dollars.
really in charge, who was running the show. I don't think I had even spoke to these people yet,
Oh
because I
God.
was busy being in one of the scenes as an extra, and they were,
Uh,
they were just going around bothering everybody. And the advertisement I put out clearly said there's no pay. You get a chance to be in a really cool movie. You get to meet Lloyd Kaufman, famous
right,
movie director. He did The Toxic Avenger. He's been around the
right.
business for 50 years. You'll make friends for life. You'll have a good time. We'll feed you,
Hmm.
but there's no
Hmm.
money. Right? It's
Hmm.
independent
Hmm.
filmmaking. There's no money.
Right,
To
right.
reiterate Lloyd's emphasis on that last sentence, no money.
Unbelievable. I've never
But
encountered anyone panhandling on any
these
sets.
guys are panhandling. Well, they were like legit sideshow people, like the traveling
Right,
circus. Like they're like carnies, So they were going around, and then
right.
their big claim to fame, their big claim to deserving this money was that they had been extras in the movie Romeo and Juliet 25 years earlier,
Oh my
which
goodness.
was not inaccurate. They're in that movie. They're not. They don't have any lines or anything. They're
Uh,
just background.
you gotta
But
love people who brag about being an extra. Like if anyone
yeah.
brags ever about being an extra, sorry, automatically it's red flag, flaming red on fire, hot Cheeto flag. It's like
Well, here's the thing, though. When you're
being
casting,
embarrassed of being an extra. I make sense, but yeah,
here's the thing, Jen. When you're
yeah.
casting extras, you need to puff them up because you're not
Oh, I
paying them.
know.
So you want them to be able to brag to their friends. That's all they're getting out of it. Is, oh, I'm in
Well,
this
maybe
cool
maybe the
indie movie, and
casting of Romeo and Juliet like really puffed them up so much that over 20 years they thought, "Oh my God, I'm Don Rickles, I'm like Conan O'Brien. Look at
oh
me," you
yeah,
know?
they thought they were cultural icons for sure.
Oh,
And I guess
wow.
that's
Okay.
maybe that is a byproduct of the low budget movie casting procedures, where you are trying to get people to work for free, so you
Mhm.
definitely inflate their egos a bit. And
Right.
these people were very inflated, and they would say, we came all
Hmm.
the way from
Uh-huh.
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We drove 6 hours to get here. We at least deserve money for the gas in our
$80.
car. And they were shaking everybody down.
$80.
80 fucking dollars. Oh, sorry, 80 freaking
Oh,
dollars.
oh well, that's
Um,
okay. I got it.
We got one in there. We got one in there. You know where
Oh
it
my
is.
goodness.
Just
Oh my
mark it on the
goodness. All right,
timeline.
you know what? Right since
So,
you said a curse, I'm gonna switch gears really fast. So you were in front
yeah,
of the camera in a movie that I guess I'm the lead in, Tara and the Tiger Babes, and I believe
yeah,
you're in the male nudity scene. You show a lot for the camera. Now,
yeah. I guess
you'll
so.
have to just see the movie, but it's male total nudity, and I think you almost see into the insides. It's almost like a colonoscopy of nudity. So what gave you the confidence to be so unclothed and disrobed? I mean, I'm just walking around in stockings and I'm a little insecure, but I got very comfortable with that after several shoots of this, just being in spandex. Yeah, how were you comfortable? And did you do anything to prepare for being nude, well, basically nude in this movie?
Well, yeah, the director and writer Brandon Bassam, he personally fluffed me for a good 20 minutes prior to the shoot starting, and so I was ready to rock and roll. I
Hmm.
was feeling very confident, and you know, um,
Any
only
shaving,
he really could have prepared me for that job.
exfoliation, or
That's a
shaving, or
joke, by the way. It's a
moisturizing?
joke.
Any
No,
moisturizing that
no,
went
no.
on?
I
No?
don't even think I showered that day, to be honest. I had to get there
What?
early, and I'm a night owl, and I probably just rolled
Oh
out of
my
bed and
God.
scratched myself and put on a thong, thinking, oh, and it's not going to be totally nude, so I'll just wear this and tuck it up my butt crack, and they'll think I'm
That's
naked.
so funny.
But then, no, it turns out, no, we're doing full nudity. But I've done nudity in movies before and stage performances, so I don't really care.
Yeah, what gives
I've
you the
done some,
confidence to be nude so freely on camera? And
oh,
also just be on stage, which is very revealing, even with your clothes on, doing stand up. That's pretty revealing.
stand
Like, what
up,
gives you the confidence?
I would say I'd rather be naked on stage or in a movie than do a full stand up set by myself.
I kind of hear you
Stand
on
up is
that.
tough.
Depends.
Stand up is
Yeah.
tough, and I've done stand up comedy. My preference is sketch comedy or um, cabaret entertainment, which I did a lot of. I
Hmm.
did a lot of show hosting more than I
Hmm.
did traditional stand up comedy, and I did a lot of stuff as characters, various characters. And yeah, since I used to do burlesque shows, one of the gimmicks was like comical male striptease and things like that. And
Hmm.
I'm not going to say I was trying to be sexy because I don't think it was very sexy, but it was silly, like silly nudity, and
Is
that's
there
that's
anything
what
you
we have
did?
in the movie.
Any like
Uh,
routines you did to feel comfortable on stage in front of people? Like, and I have all these things I do before I talk to people or before I do
uh,
anything. I have routines. I'm a little
just smoke a whole
OCD.
lot of weed and maybe pop a
Ah,
Xanax, drink a six
see,
pack, the usual.
this is one reason why I really admire and adore and really just appreciate Steve because I feel like his MOs for life are so different than mine, and I really appreciate the differences. And I can get very regimented and perfectionistic and caught up in things. I mean, my procedure just before shooting is like using three types of soaps on my bodies before shooting the other films. You're like, I need to have to shower, and you're very spontaneous, which I'm not. It's like, oh, if I'm gonna even drive someone home, I need to know like 5 weeks ahead and get a smoke signal alerting me that I'll be participating in different things. But no, I like the spontaneity. I feel like you're someone that really gets in the flow of life, like you really enjoy the moment. And I'm always like sitting here analyzing and planning, and it's kind of hard to enjoy when you're constantly planning the future.
Well, to be honest, I have a neurotic side, so I can be anxious and I can overthink things.
Hmm.
But I've usually just put myself out there into so many different areas of life, both socially and professionally, creative ventures and business ventures and whatnot. There's so much going on that things just kind of get thrust upon me.
Right.
During the course of the film, thankfully, nothing got thrust into me, but thrust upon me, yes. Things just happen. And I'm in a situation where somebody's like, okay, you got to do this now. And I'm like, oh, whoa, man, I don't know. And it's just like, all right, I'll just take a rip and
Well,
just throw myself in there.
I
Let's
found
do
you to
it.
be I found you to be pretty easygoing. That's something that I would like to be more of. So I plan so much so that I can be easygoing for like 6 hours or a day. Oh no, we lost his camera. Oh, maybe he'll come back.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
Because
here we
my
go.
stupid phone wants to update in the middle of a conversation, and
Not yet. Give us
I,
like 10 minutes.
I,
Is there
I know
is
very
there
little about technology.
what deal breakers do you have when it comes to working with someone on set, whether they're an actress or producer, extra, makeup artist? What's something you see and you're like, no, 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 keep them off my set?
I'll be honest, there isn't many. The bar is set pretty
I had
low
a feeling.
because
Not, they'll not, I didn't say that.
I'm not
That's derogatory. I didn't say that.
I'm not working for Hollywood. You know, I don't
Hmm.
have giant budgets. I'm lucky if I put money into a production, if I even make it back, let alone turn some kind of a profit.
Right.
I'm mostly getting my feet wet because this is something I'm rather new to.
Well, you know what?
I, you know, I
What are the, since you don't have so many things that cut someone out where you're like, no, like I have a lot of nopes. Um, what
I
are
guess if
some
they
things
cost
that
too
you
much
like?
money,
They cost too much money.
we
What
prefer
are
people
things
who show up for free. That's for sure. And then
what
we
are
just
things
got
you
to deal
really
with
want?
whatever else.
What are
What
some
do I
things
really
you really
want?
want? Yeah.
Well, I would
In
love to be
someone to work
producing.
with.
I'd love to be producing full time,
Okay.
and for that to be a profitable venture. And I would love to be able to, give people a proper union wage and all that someday.
Hmm.
And that's tough with independent films because you don't have the widest distribution. And if you get lucky and you get picked up by a bigger studio, and they're going to give your film a wider audience on either through cinematic distribution or streaming distribution.
Hmm.
Chances are, if you're not that well known, you're going to, they're still going to take most of the money, and then it's a process until you get to be an established name, and then you have
Hmm. Hmm.
negotiating power. So that's why I keep consistently working with Brandon because I think he's a genius writer. I think he's a brilliant
I
director,
agree.
and Lloyd has distributed now. This will be the third film that I've been involved with him. He's already up to 5 or 6, and
Right.
so they're getting a lot of press. These movies, they're very well reviewed. They're for
Hmm.
what they are. They're very popular. Lloyd, of course, is a household name. Anybody who grew up in the '80s and the '90s or older than that, they know who he is. Any fan of B movies or horror movies knows Lloyd Kaufman. He's right up there with Roger Corman and guys like that. So everybody knows Lloyd, and to be affiliated with Lloyd is fantastic. And to be producing films with him that are on par with the
Hmm.
quality of the films that made him famous back in the '80s and '90s, or even I would say even better than some of those films, maybe in some aspects. I don't want to, I don't want to. I don't want to be too egotistical here and compare our stuff to the classics, but I think Shakespeare's Poop Storm and the Slashing films, I would say they're definitely quality wise right up there with films like The Toxic Avenger, the original Class of Nukem High. My personal favorite trauma movie though is Poultrygeist. I like that one the best. I think that's just
Just
phenomenal in
don't
so
watch
many
that one
ways.
while eating. Don't watch that while eating. I tried to eat during
Unless you
that.
want to lose weight.
Yeah, if you
But yeah,
want to lose weight,
what
just keep Poultrygeist on all the time.
I would say the sort of person who I wouldn't work with would be anyone who really whatever BS they're bringing to the table, it's just not worth it, even if they're showing up for free. And I think those people who
Hmm.
showed up on that set, I'm not going to mention their names, but if
Yeah.
you're watching this, you know who you are and you know what you did.
That's just really funny.
Yeah,
I've never
going
heard of
around
that.
shaking all the assistant directors down for $80 in gas money when you were told there's no payment, and trying to throw
It's
it
pretty
around. I was in
crazy.
Romeo and Juliet for 2 seconds. It's
Well,
like, all
speaking of
right, pal,
money,
okay.
you
Yeah.
know, you've probably heard this, but I've definitely heard this in conversation. I want to make a movie, but I don't have the budget. And Lloyd has a book, Make Your Own Damn Movie, which discusses and kind of gives a how-to on how to make movies with lower budget. So if someone said to you, "Man, I want to make this movie. I have this script. It's a it'll be 24 minutes, so it'll be a short film, but I don't have the
Hmm.
budget." What would you tell them?
I would say take out a bunch of credit cards. That's how that's. I mean, you laugh, but this is a legitimate strategy. This is how
I
Kevin
know,
Smith did Clerks. It was all
I
on
know.
credit card debt.
It's just so funny because our brains work so differently, and it's just great because I love the alternate point of view here. I'd be like, "Oh my God," I was like, "Not doing that." Continue, continue.
I mean, if it doesn't work out, you can always declare bankruptcy and then, que sera, sera. Yeah, take out credit cards,
Oh
sell
yeah.
drugs, donate an organ or two, get really, really close to any very elderly relatives you have who might
Right?
have some money saved up, because if you're lucky, they'll kick the bucket in the next couple of years, and then posthumously they will be your angel investor. So that's always an option. You can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, there's a lot of things you could do. My advice to someone who's trying to make a movie is movies cost money. So it really
Yeah.
doesn't matter how creative you are. It doesn't matter how much of a genius you are.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't even matter how many people you could get to show up and do something for free. Something is
Mm-hmm.
going to cost you something somewhere down the
Yeah.
line. There's going to be unavoidable financial expenses. And the biggest expense of all is your time. So you need
Right.
to be situated in life in a way where you have the time to devote to
Yeah.
these kinds of ventures that may not be profitable until the long run pans out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say for me, I'm an entrepreneurial person, and I've always prioritized working for myself. So I'm used to having my own schedule, and I've always prioritized just making a buck, and this
Right.
way I could venture into these kind of activities. So maybe but I'm coming at things from the producer angle. So
Yeah.
producer, in order to produce, you either have to be the person paying for things or the person putting things together and figuring out how to get everything done in a way that doesn't cost anything, or more
Mm-hmm.
than likely you're doing both. And
Mm-hmm.
you could be a hired producer. You could go work
Mm-hmm.
for other companies. You don't have to have a dime in your pocket to do that. You're not personally investing anything. That's very long hours, very long days, working for somebody else. And again, they're going to pay you very little to start with until you make a name for
Mm-hmm.
yourself. Could take 5, 10 years. So I would say um, just be a very frugal minded person. Don't waste your money on bullshit in life. Try to make as much as you can any way you can. Put it aside. Make a lot of friends. Be a very
Yeah.
likable person, so that when you want to put a project together and you say, hey, look, I'm doing this for free, or I'm doing this for very little money, so I can afford to pay other people, but it'll be a lot of fun, and you get to
Mm-hmm.
work with me, then those people will say, oh, yeah, yeah, sure, I'll do it. I'll show up on set for a day or two or three, or you could shoot a movie in my house, or in the bowling alley I work for, or you could use my car, or my trained gorilla, or whatever it is, whatever
And
resources they have at their disposal.
you used to work in finance, right? Didn't you? Many
Yes,
moons
I
ago?
did. Many
Okay,
moons,
so
well, not that many moons ago. My father was a Wall Street guy. He started as a teenager and stuck with it his whole life. Never went to college for it, but those days were different. You could kind of do that kind of thing. And yeah, he was a Wall Street dude. He was across the street from the towers on 9/11. He worked for Lehman Brothers.
mhm.
He got pretty effed over when that whole situation went down the drain. But he stuck with it. He eventually had his own company, and me and my brother both worked for him for about a decade and a half each. So I did raise up some good money doing that, and then invested that money into other entrepreneurial schemes. I don't do finance stuff anymore since my father passed away.
Mm.
That ship has kind of sailed. I was mostly doing it, because he was doing it, and
Hmm.
you know, now I'm doing this.
Well, I'm sure it
But
taught you something. I'm sure it
it
taught you
taught me
some
a lot
things
of
that you
things. I
apply
mean,
now.
it definitely taught me, uh, that if you have any amount of capital set aside, even $1,000, if
Hmm.
you're working as a day trader, there's a lot you could do with just $1,000. It's risky stuff, but you could do it.
Hmm.
and
Right.
and beyond that, you could take out various loans and credit lines, and whatever you could do in life, not just in filmmaking but in life, whatever you could do on borrowed money is always best. So it's the first rule of business is do it with other people's money. Now, in regards to
Hmm.
my
Hmm.
my my projects with trauma. It's my own money that's being used. But you know,
They're using
it's
other
whatever.
people's money. They're following your
No, I'm
advice.
not.
No,
I'm not
they're
following my own
using other
advice, but
people's, yeah,
they are using other people's money. They are
your money.
following that advice. Yeah, well, me and well, I
Yeah.
would say Lloyd is the principal financier on these projects, and he's the
Hmm.
distributor, and he's the executive, the number one executive producer who has final say on all the production and creative decisions there, and that's the privilege that being the financier gives you. The more money you put into something, the more you control you have over the project, and
Hmm.
that applies to filmmaking. It applies to everywhere else. So my father grew up poor, and he got into the middle class vis-a-vis working on Wall Street, and he did well for himself, and and he left a little something behind for me and my brother and his grandchildren, and he always just taught me the value of being your own boss and working hard, and if you can set aside, if you have access to money and you're the guy with the money, you can do what you want, but it's risky.
Hmm.
You take a risk, you know you take a
Hmm.
risk in anything that you invest in, and so you want to be as frugal and sensible as possible. Now, me,
Right.
as you said, I can be a bit spontaneous, and sometimes that
Hmm.
doesn't work to my advantage.
Well,
I
speaking
have
of
made some poor investments over the years, but at the end of the day, I'm still doing okay. I'm coming out on top 9 times out of 10.
well, making films can cancel out your bank account. Definitely,
Sure
it's a
can. It sure can.
possibility.
Yeah.
So we'll switch to cancel culture. I would love to cancel culture. I can't stand it. I know you're not a big fan, or you're a really good pretender. What are some things that you would love to cancel if you were the lord of cancel culture?
Well,
Mm,
I don't believe in canceling things. I think that stuff will organically cancel itself if it is
okay.
unpopular enough. So this whole idea of people going out there like a lynch mob with the pitchforks and the torches and saying, "I don't like this, and we need to remove it from
Right.
whatever source of distribution it's on. The radio, the cinema, the television, the streaming channels. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. I don't like it." I mean, it's
Hmm.
absurdly, horrifically arrogant. It's Nazi-esque. It's Stalinist. It's Maoist. It's authoritarian, uh, and it's nonsensical, because really, if enough people don't like something, it won't be viable. It won't be economically viable. It won't be culturally viable. It'll disappear on its own, I assure you. But the fact that people are out there clamoring for something to be forcibly removed, and they think that if they just pressure the powers that be enough to cave to their demands. I mean, what they're not realizing is, well, there's enough other people who feel very differently about this content, whatever it is, that it's
Hmm.
it's popular and it's making somebody money, or a lot of people money, and it's out there. And no, you're not going to cancel it unless so I don't really understand what the mentality is. I think it's like these people are very arrogant. I guess they're hoping their thoughts go viral, and there's enough other people saying, "Oh, get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it." But they're not realizing there's also a whole bunch of other people, probably more people, saying, "Oh, but we want this, and we're willing to pay for it." And so,
Hmm.
this talks, everything else walks. Nobody cares if you're offended. Nobody cares about your stupid opinions. If you don't like something, don't watch it, don't listen to it, don't buy it. That's how you cancel something out of your life. And as an American, you have that right. Nobody should be imposing their stuff onto you. You don't have to listen. You don't have to watch. You certainly don't have to pay for it. But you don't have the right to tell other people you can't be exposed to this content. There's a lot of things I don't agree with. Hey, I think the world would be a much better place if every copy of Karl Marx's books just disappeared tomorrow. That guy's ideas have led to the deaths of
So,
over 100 million people.
so
But
maybe that's
I'm
something
not going
you'd
to be
like
the
to
one who.
cancel.
Well, no, because then I would be just another Marxist. I'd be the one
Right.
rounding up books and throwing them on the fire like a Nazi. So
Right.
I'm not
Right.
that kind
Right.
of person. I don't. Because in any way, if Karl Marx's books disappeared tomorrow, some other idiot would have a similar idea, and then he'd have a book that would cause the deaths of another 100 million people in the next century, because bad ideas always come back around in another form. So it's good to
Mm,
have these ideas already written down, so that they could be disputed, so that
I like
somebody
that.
could say, hey, look, this book is full of bad ideas. That's why, no, we shouldn't censor Mein Kampf. We shouldn't censor Karl Marx. We shouldn't censor anything, because if an
Hmm.
idea is terrible enough, you can refute it easily with logic and evidence. But
You're
the minute
right.
something becomes taboo, then it gains a whole other power. Once you bring something, you make something prohibited, you actually give it strength, because
That's
now
true.
people are curious. What's this banned book? I got to go find a copy somewhere. And you can't ever
Yeah.
totally ban anything. There's
Yeah,
always going
I've
to be something
never
that slips through the cracks.
I know they tried to ban Dr. Seuss, and I found myself craving Dr. Seuss. It's like they tried to, there's all
Yeah,
this talk about banning abortion. It's like when you go on a diet, I used to crave mint chocolate chip ice cream, and I really wanted to just pull over to Carvel. I can't have the ice cream. It's like I never found myself craving an abortion so much. I never wanted an abortion, but they tell me I can't have one. Now I want one. That's a crazy one. And part of your rant, you said Hitler, Stalin, Mao. It reminds me of Alex Jones, who's like, Hitler took the guns, Stalin took the guns, Mao took the guns. Just everything will commence again. I was like, oh, see, you got a little Alex Jones fire in you on the cancel culture topic.
I love Alex Jones. Alex Jones is great. And
Me
look what
too.
happened. They tried to silence him. They hit him with that BS lawsuit. And I don't agree with what he said about Sandy Hook, by the way, but I
Right,
actually do believe that he sincerely believed what he was saying was correct. This is a guy
right.
who deals with a lot of conspiracy theories, and 9 times out of 10 they turn out to be true. So in his worldview, he thinks that this whole thing might have been fabricated, and I can
Mm-hmm.
understand why he would think. And I don't. I understand why that's an offensive thought to the people who lost someone in that tragedy. Obviously,
Sure.
just like my father lost a lot of friends on September 11th. He ultimately succumbed to a cancer that I think was related to the events of
Mm,
that day. And when people used to say, 9/11 was an inside job, I was very offended and very
mm,
upset at the thought of that. And nowadays, with everything that's happened since in the last 20 years, I don't claim to know
mm.
exactly what happened on that
Right,
day, but I,
right.
I'll tell you this: I no longer believe the official narrative. There was something else fishy
Well,
going
the
on there. What
insurance
exactly? I don't know.
wasn't
Oh
that
yeah,
the
so many things. So many
there was an
things. Yeah, the guy
insurance
who, yeah, somebody bought
speaking
the
out a week
building.
before? Right.
Larry Silverstein, I think, purchased the building. They call him Lucky Larry. I call myself Lucky Steve, but that's a funny parallel. But yeah, this guy, he got real lucky. He took out he bought the World Trade Center. I don't know who owned it previously, but he purchased it and he took out like a multi-billion-dollar insurance policy
Right
that
before.
had a provision for terrorism, which is not that suspicious because the
Within
building
a
had
week
been in a terrorist
though
attack
of it
before.
happening.
Well,
I
that's the
think it was
suspicious
within a
part.
week.
I mean,
That's the timeline. It's
if
a
you're
very
gonna
weird
if you're
timeline.
gonna yeah, if you're gonna own a skyscraper in New York, you want insurance that covers terrorism because of the first World Trade Center attack happened in '93. But what was very suspicious, I forget the timeline. I'd have to look it up. But very shortly after, it might have even been like within a day or a week, the towers got
Right,
hit,
right.
and so many other things
So
since
many
then.
other
So
things.
I don't get offended by conspiracy theories. I want to know more. You got a theory about some shady stuff you think is going on? Okay, even if I think it's ridiculous at first, I might,
Share it.
look into it
Yeah,
a little, because you never know.
yeah,
You have to be
yeah. And that's
open-minded,
how you
because you
learn.
just can't trust. You can't trust anything these days. Is what we've learned. But yeah, they tried to
Hmm.
cancel Alex Jones, and look what happened. They just gave him free publicity. There's
And Steve,
there's
back
there's
to
no such
you.
thing as bad
We have
publicity.
1 minute on the clock. So list your Instagram, Facebook, website, anything, final words. We got about 40 seconds.
Yeah, sure. I'm on Facebook as Lucky Steve. I don't use last names on social media because
Hmm.
I'm a bit of a private person, and
Okay.
I operate under a few different stage names anyway. But anyone who knows me as Lucky Steve, and you can find me on Instagram as Lucky Centaur. There's that whole Sagittarius thing again, and yeah, there's some fun stuff on there if you are inclined towards some esoteric reading materials and visual materials, and
He posts
you
a
know
lot of ideas that the mainstream media maybe doesn't post. And before we get cut off, I'll just say thank you for
yeah.
listening to It Came from the